Assalamu alaikum. Dr. Said, we cannot hear you.
Are you talking about me?
Do you?
Yes, we can see your slides.
Bismillah, assalamu alaikum. First of all, I would like to thank Dr. Said for invitation. I'm really flattered and humbled to be one of the facilitators, one of the participants here to share my experience. So my name is Mohammed Filimban. I'm an assistant professor in the computer engineering department. And today I will share with you my experience in applying some of the IBL techniques in teaching in two courses. I taught these courses in last spring, 212, as well as last summer, 213. The courses are from the computer engineering department, which are part of the quantum information and computing MX. So just to set up the ground, I'll start off with basically the types or levels of IBL. I am on no means I'm here to lecture you about the IBL. I think Dr. Leisman and Dr. Said and his team provided us with rich resources to learn more about IBL. Just here, I'm putting this slide just as a reference for myself as well for my colleagues here to kind of map each activity that I used in both courses to one of the levels. We have the confirmation level, we have the structured, the guided, and the open free level of teaching or assessment. When I started teaching the course UE 530 last spring, I decided to go of a mix of the confirmation and the structured level first. That basically because that was the first time I adopt IBL in one of the course that I'm teaching. In addition, it was a graduate course. Probably that would be easier if teaching graduate course than undergraduate courses. But I thought maybe I'll start off with those two levels first, and then maybe in the next class or in the next course, I apply more advanced levels depending on the situation. So just to put you in context, introduction about the course. So this is called the title of the course, Quantum Computing and Architecture. So it is offered in the second semester of the MX program. These are the objectives. I'm listing it here just to kind of focus on the CLOs that I was basically focusing on in one of the activities that I designed, which is basically identifying the potential applications suitable for quantum computers. As you know, quantum computing is an emerging computing field, And often it is there is this misconception that quantum computer will basically replace classical computer. So the idea here is just to show students that, you know, quantum computer is not like, is not meant to replace classical computer. Rather, there are some specific applications where quantum computing would exceed or excel as compared to classical computer. So there are a specific family of problems and algorithms where quantum computing showed to be more advantages, show more advantages than the classical computer. And just to give an example, I designed a class activity based on the famous game Wordle. I think maybe most of you know it, but if you don't know it, I'll explain it in less than a minute. So basically, it's a guessing game, and the goal is to guess a 5-letter game, right? Word. So the word here is games, and you have 6 attempts. In the first attempt, you need to guess a word, and you get 3 types of feedback. A gray letter means that this letter is not used in the correct word. A green one means that this is a correct word in the a correct letter in the correct place. While an orange or yellow letter, it means that this letter is used but not in the correct place. So, for example, in the first case, you have G and S in the right place. U is not in the word. S, there is no other S in the word, but E is in the word, in the correct word, but not in the third, not as a third letter. So the right word is games, right? So the question here is this can we use quantum computing to solve a game of Wordle? And if so, can we do better than the classical way? And so this is the statistics of about 2,200 times played Wordle. The average number, or the most of the words was found in 4 attempts, right? So 33% of the time it was found in the 4th attempt. So to make things a little bit more challenging, the question is, can we do it in 1 guess, exactly 1 guess, right? So if you are interested, I could explain to you, but I need a longer session. And the activity that we so I made a group discussion. I divided the team or the class into 3 groups, and I asked each group to come up with let's say a formal mathematical formulation of the Wordle game, and then think of ways or a quantum algorithm that we covered in the class to solve this problem in whatever number of trials. But then I constrained it to exactly 1 guess, and we found a way. So this was one of the activities that I did in the first course, 530, and this was kind of, again, at a group discussion, and then I gave them as an assignment. But then I built on top of this activity, and I gave them an example or a question in the final exam, similar to the problem. But in this time, I gave them another game, which is called Battleship. Basically, my son got this kit in Eid, and I played with him a few times, and then I got the idea, and I thought maybe I can use the same idea for the final exam. So I gave them the same question. This is the kind of the figure in the question, and I asked him, if we are to play against a quantum computer, is there a chance to win? Right? So I know there is a solution where quantum computing, or a way that quantum computing can solve this problem. So the question is, can we beat it? And most of the students, if not all, actually figured out a way, starting from the Wordle game solution, to actually find an algorithm for quantum computer to solve it in 1 time. So the answer is no, we cannot beat a quantum computing if we are playing against him. So this was basically the activity that I did for 530. And then I decided to move on and apply IBL again in the summer in 531, which is basically another course in the MX program offered in summer. So again, these are the objectives and the CLOs. In here, I was a little bit, teaching in summer has its own challenges. So I was not really sure of what type of IBL activities I would design here. class discussions might not be the most suitable thing. So I decided to do this exercise where I asked the students to submit questions in their own words about topics that we covered in today's class. And we take the quiz in the first 10 minutes in the next class. So I would select up to four questions. And the objective here is not to maybe kind of tricky questions. It's more likely for them to recall the topic and that we covered the previous class, and basically ability to articulate their questions in a way that I can use it for quizzes. I would use four questions. Each quiz has 1 point, and whoever I selected his or her question, she will get a mark for that question. So overall we did about 17 quizzes over the summer, and I found that this is my own feedback, and then I get validated by the comments from students that students tend to pay high attention during classes, basically to pick a difficult question that nobody was able to pick, and they will get the mark for that question. So attention rate was higher. And then I noticed this throughout the semester. In the first 1 week or so, the questions were not articulated properly, but toward the end, they started to kind of articulate the questions more properly. So I had in the beginning of the semester, I had to actually adjust the questions so that it would be understandable. But at the end, toward the end, I was just copy and paste the question as is. The cons are it's more work, obviously, because I have to filter and read and make sure that the questions are appropriate. And then I would do that every day, 4 days a week. But then I found a way to kind of streamline the process, basically because students, they learned the trick where they flood me with so many questions to increase their chances of picking up one of their questions. But at the end, I was able to streamline the process, and it was a little bit more less burden on me toward the last 2 weeks or so. So the objective here is I wanted the students to articulate their questions as well as paying more attention. And I figured out this is basically the second level, which is of IBL levels, which is I think it's structured or so. But then at the beginning of the semester, I was not really satisfied with adopting only this method, especially that this course is the last course in the MX program. So I wanted this course also to be kind of a reconciliation course for the whole program. So I went back to the POs, the program educational objectives, as well as the program learning objectives, and I was trying to kind of find out ways to connect the other 7 courses with this course. And I was basically looking at the last 2 PLOs, the search and utilize information on topics on QIC, as well as communication, either verbally or in writing. So I decided to embed 2 things in this course. The first one is presentation. Although this is a computer engineering class or courses, most of the students came from physics background. So more or less they know and they admire the famous Richard Feynman, who has one quote that says, if you cannot explain something in simple terms, you don't understand it. So from here, I wanted them to basically pick any topic. It doesn't have to be advanced topic in quantum computing or information. It could be as simple as talking about what is quantum entanglement, which is a very fundamental topic in quantum information. But the only condition is that ignore that or ignore the fact that I am a professor. Assume that I am a first year undergrad student and explain these in simple layman terms. Most of the students did a great job. Few of them did not really present well, but I think most of the students did a great job in explaining things or understanding first and then explaining in simple terms. The other activity that I wanted also to embed in this course is essays or, in quote unquote informal writing. Mainly because I noticed that some of the students are weak in English formal writing. And I noticed that from the reports from the previous course. So I told them, you don't have to write it formally. Submit any informal piece of writing. It could be an essay, it could be a blog, it could be a thread of tweets, but it has to be something related to the topics, quantum computing topics. And I also encourage them to write it in Arabic, basically to enrich the Arabic content in quantum computing. And I received really nice articles, both in Arabic and in English. So this is, for example, زمن الترابط البت الكمي, quantum bit coherence, quantum teleportation. And one student, she did a novel, Alice in Quantum Land. So this is basically, I want them to kind of communicate their knowledge in writing, right? So this is one also, and I gave them the option to choose the topic. So I thought this is probably toward level 4, which is kind of an open-ended assignment where you choose the topic and you write about it. And I had some rubric assessments I shared with them in order to have some fairness in grading. So this is by no means bragging about the student comments, but just kind of validation that what we did in the course is actually was beneficial. So asking questions a good thing during the class. It was more fun to learn, although the topic was not really, especially the other course, was not really fun. Answering questions and actually, encouraging students to ask questions. That's an important thing. Not only lecturing, make it more interactive way of teaching. Peer-to-peer discussion and learning through group discussion, and as well as at some point I gave the assignments or the reports of the assignments to each other, where they had to mark it or give me kind of a grade of 4 letters, A, B, C, and D, just for me to kind of have an indication of how they mark each other's submission. Class discussion was really something that I myself enjoyed it before the students. I used to send them every day. I used to go on Twitter and so on and find articles related to the topics and send it to them. And at the beginning, they didn't have time to read, but at the end they were started to read and actually share article news with me. So I think these are very valuable comments. I take it myself because I actually was not sure whether the activities that I did was actually beneficial, but what I'm sure about as of today is that I'm more comfortable to apply more IBL activities in future classes than I was, let's say, 4 or 6 months ago. So that was my presentation, and I'll be happy to take any question either now or later on, depending on what Dr. Said says. So thank you, and thank you all for listening.
Thank you, Dr. Fernand. You can take a couple of questions.
Sure.
And then,
I see
any
Dr.
questions?
Dr. Jamal?
Yeah.
Assalamu alaikum, ahla wa marhaba, ya'tik al-afiyah, Dr. Muhammad. Thank you for this fruitful experience. I'd like to ask, did you have to change the setup of your exams?
The setup of the exam?
The setup of the exams, yeah.
No, this is just a regular final exam mode. I did not change any setup or anything.
Okay, so you have practiced these things during the classes only, not after the majors and the exams.
Well, in the first course, yes, I did. We practiced this in the class, but this question was kind of one regular question in the final exam. So there was no special setup for the final exam.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Any other questions?
Yes, Fadl.
Assalamu alaikum.
Go ahead.
I'm Mohammed from Mechanical Engineering. I just want to know how many students you had in this course and what was the size of each team that you make?
Okay, that's a good question. So the batch was relatively small. I had about 13 students in the first class, of course. 12 students in the first course and 10 in the second course. So that was, I think that's a small size. So I was able to do this kind of activities. Yes.
What was the size of each team that you make?
3 to 4.
3 to 4 students. So maybe 3 or 4 groups you make. That's good.
Yeah, 3 to 4.
And duration, sir? Duration?
The entire class. So we have about 75 minutes for the class discussion.
Oh, right. Okay.
Dr. Flamban, you said that initially you were flooded with the questions, which was a nice activity, but at the end you found a way. So can you share that experience, like how to control, or what was the efficient way to control that flooding of emails and optimize it?
So I used Microsoft Forms. First of all, I used Microsoft Forms to kind of receive the questions. And at first I had no limit on the number of questions that they submit. But then there is only, every form has this option of submitting the form once, right? So they submit only one question. So that was the trick that I learned late in the semester. And then it was more like streamlined. And then I would flush the Excel sheet every day so that, it would be, all the questions would be in a nice, concise way that I'll just pick and copy and paste to Blackboard.
Okay. So you use forms instead of emails and things. You use forms. Okay, nice. Yeah, thank you.
And it's nice, there is this nice feature to integrate it with MS Teams, but you have to be careful that I learned this in the second week. The Excel sheet or the Excel file itself used to be shared with students, so they see the questions, each other questions, and probably the answers. But then some student told me that the Excel sheet is there. So I moved it out of the MS Teams, which is I think it's easy to do, and in that way, students were not able to see the questions. At the end, one last comment. At the end, I made all the questions available to the students at the end of the semester, and then from this pool of questions, I selected about 10 to 15 questions for the final exam.
So thank you.
In that way, I generated a pool of questions for next semester. You're welcome, Doctor.
Okay, thank you, Mohammed. You can take more questions at the end. Now sure. We go to Dr. Mubashir Aziz. You have 8 to 10 minutes, Mubashir.
Sir, inshallah, let me share. So I hope my screen is visible.
It is.
Okay. So Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu to everyone. And first of all, special thanks to Dr. Syed for providing us this opportunity on sharing this IBL experience. It was really a wonderful experience to learn a lot of new things on teaching and learning. Thank you, Dr. Muhammad, for your presentation. Actually, I think people have already learned a lot of good things from your presentation. So maybe mine one will not make the difference. So my name is Dr. Mubashir Aziz. I'm working as an assistant professor in the Department of Civil Engineering. Let me share my experience with you regarding this IBL. So just about the course which I have taught. This was Construction Management and Economy course offered by the Department of Civil Engineering. Interestingly, the course, the number of students registered in this course was about 41, and I had 2 sections. In one of the section, if you see the number of students corresponding to civil engineering and applied civil engineering, they were about 37% and 63% from industrial science and engineering. Likewise, in section 2, I had about 19% students from civil and applied civil engineering and 81% from the industrial science and engineering. So if you see, the course itself was a multidisciplinary course with students from two altogether different departments. If I make an average ratio, it's about 28% of civil engineering to 72% of the industrial science students. So the challenge starts here actually. This is a course which is rich in civil engineering contents. As you see the name of the course, it's construction management, because we all know that project management is a generic area which can fit to any field of education, but construction, the word construction focuses the contents towards civil engineering. So it was a challenge. How should I make this course interesting, appealing to industrial engineering students? And as you can see, 72% students are from industrial science. So the solution was to try a new approach, which is definitely in which you emphasize more on how the students will participate in understanding and discussions and so on, rather than just delivering them the contents which they may feel as not relevant to them. So IBL definitely gave me an opportunity to explore this one. So I'll just share with you some of the assessments which I did in this course, and definitely on IBL approach. And I was monitoring continuously, looking at the students' performance, that how is it working, and am I able to make this course equally interesting to industrial science students also, as well as to the civil engineering students. So starting with the very first assignment which I gave to them, I'm mentioning an IBL level 2 over here, thanks to Dr. Muhammad. He has already shared, and all the our Deanship of Academic Activities, they have shared a lot of documents. So Alhamdulillah, I'm pretty sure every one of us, we know different levels and how they are assessed. So I assume it to be a level 2 IBL activity. What I did was, in this case, to start with the course, is just to get them familiar with the terminologies of construction industry. Because like I said before, my challenge was to keep the industrial students on board also throughout the course. So they had to get familiar with the basic terminologies and kind of construction sector, how is it working. So there was a very interesting article available, recently published. It was about how the Saudi Arabia's construction industry is bouncing back. And then what I asked the students is the different thing I did was, rather than just asking them to just summarize and submit me a piece of paper and I have to go through and assess it, I asked them to summarize it in a way that you are working for a business development organization and you are presenting it in an online investment forum. So it means you have to convince the audience that how this industry or this sector is bouncing back. Based on the information available on that in that article. So what they were asked to do was that they had to record a 5 minutes video lecture. Actually, it was like they were assuming that they are making a presentation in front of a bigger audience or an online investment forum, whatever you can call it as. So there was a limit on number of slides. There was a limit on the duration of the video. And definitely I gave them some kind of rubrics that this is the criteria I'm going to follow for your assessments, like the duration of the video is important, the number of slides you're going to make, that is important, the discussions you're going to make and how to convince the audience that how the construction industry is working on, that is important. So I gave them the rubrics, so they knew it. So definitely it was kind of a new thing for the students. Rather than submitting the reports, they were asked to submit a video recorded lecture. So this is just, I don't know if you could hear it very loud and clear, because I just put this video recorded lecture into my presentation. This is one of the student sample which he submitted. I'll just play it and I'll show you how good the presentation, the contents of the presentation are. And really, if you can hear it quickly, I'll just scroll through. The discussions he made also was very appealing to me, at least. So this is.
I am Yala Sayed, and in this presentation, I will talk about the construction sector in Saudi Arabia. First, how is it now, and what is next, and what is the state of the construction work in Saudi Arabia? I will briefly discuss some aspects to answer this question. Firstly, the Saudi Contractor Authority and its formed in 2017, and it basically addresses or regulates some issues such as labor and increasing mergers, etc. These changes that encourage the private sector have made the competition bigger and bigger now that foreign companies can 100% take over construction projects, and this applies hospital and side hospitals, schools, and hotels. We are aiming to make.
So if you see over here, the student is not just submitting a lot of text. He made some good points out of that article, and then he's trying to summarize it in a way that relates to what I asked them, that how would you convince the audience sitting in front of you? And interestingly, he did a wonderful job, not he only, because I made all the assessments for all the students, individual assignment it was. So everybody was like trying to get involved into it, make the presentations as better as they can. So if I just quickly go through, you can see the contents of his presentation are very appealing, not having too much text, although it was an article. So I was expecting to see a lot of paragraphs and text, which I did not actually, fortunately or luckily. So you can see their presentations and then how they are like doing all these kind of discussions. So it was an interesting experience for the students as well as for me. So if I show you what, so I'll just stop this video and move on to the next one. So this is just like the performance evaluation for this activity. What I want to show over here to you guys is that if you look at the rubrics which I use for them, that how is the number of slides they are following, the duration they are following, and then mainly the technical contents was about how good the presentation is and the relevance of the discussion. So interestingly, if you see in both sections, the students' performance, if I count the students, and if I do this rating, actually, I'm sorry, I have to just tell you that this green color represents like rating at 3, you can call it as an excellent, rating at 2, kind of satisfactory, and rating 1 means needs improvement. So if you see the students in both sections, they were good at maintaining the overall requirements of following the time and the number of slides. But they were slightly performing on the lower side once it went to the quality of presentations and relevance of the discussions. But still, if I look at this rubrics of assessment, so mainly I was happy to see how did they prepare good presentations and presented all this information in a very concise way. So more or less, you can see very little students on rating 1, or rather only few. You see some of the students over here, actually, the problem mainly was with their communication skills. So I don't blame them on the technical side, but the communication side was weak. So maybe they got some less marks on that. There was another assignment too. I put it on IBL level 2. What I did in this was, again, like I told you at the start, my concern was there are students from industrial science and civil, so keep them on the same page. So we did discuss something we already know, some method of Gantt charts or bar chart methods for planning and scheduling. So we did study this topic in the class, and I just wanted them to make a Gantt chart of their study plan at the King Fahd University. So this was something which was of a common interest for all the students. I didn't give them some example from civil engineering purely or from mechanical engineering so that they get confused. So it was a very generic assignment, and I asked them to make your own breakdown structure and then show that what is your scheduled progress and what is the actual progress of your study plan. And you can use any tool, any software, whatever you like. So if I show you some of the student samples, again, very interesting thing, because once you let the students to think on their own using this IBL approach, definitely they come up with different ideas. You don't see repetitions, because if you don't go with this option, mostly we see similar assignments with similar approaches and all these things, because they are guided one. So in this case, for example, one of the students, he made his Gantt chart. He thought that making it on semester-wise Gantt chart and showing his progress is a good idea. Of course, that's what he thinks. There is another student who thought that it's better to go with a year-wise idea, and he made his progress and schedule plans as per year-wise, as you see over here, and made all the details, how much he has completed, how much is still incomplete, and so on. And if you see another student, he even went to a more deeper level of even course-wise. So you can see he had a long list of all the courses and then their completion and still in progress and so on. So the point to say over here is, although it's a very simple thing, but the point to say is if we involve the students with something like we call it as an inquiry base, then they will go out of the inbox things and they will explore a lot of other opportunities. That's what you can see as a result of adopting these kind of educational techniques. So this is the result. Again, very astonishing and appealing for me as well as for the students. You can see the number of students performing at at a high rate was very high. I was happy to see that. There were a few students at one, but actually, unfortunately, they just copied each other. They submitted the same thing. Although it was a good idea, one of them made it, but he just distributed to the other, and it was a plagiarized work. I gave them any marks for that. And the third assignment, which I gave to them, was again kind of an open-ended one. I put it at level 2 or level 3 because, you know, we're always learning out of IBL things that is it really at level 2 or level 3? Although we know the details, but sometimes practically there are small differences between these levels. So what I asked them was, interesting thing was I taught them something about the construction safety principles as per international standards. Then instead of asking these things in the exams, quizzes, that was a difficult part. That's just like a memory checking kind of a test. So I didn't want to do that. So what I did was I just asked them to go outside. There are a lot of projects going on across your wherever you are living or in the university and so on in your surroundings. So just take 10 pictures, actual evidences of possible construction safety hazards. Just take those pictures, and what you have to do is identify the nature and the hazard of the possible remedial measures, and that's all. So, and how to avoid it. So this thing again made it interesting for the students, because if I would have asked questions in the exam, in the quizzes, maybe they would have answered that, okay, this is this issue and this is how it is solved. But going physically by yourself, looking at the construction safety hazards, risks, taking a picture, identifying the hazard, and then suggesting some solutions, that makes it interesting. So the students went out of the box solutions. So again, the reports they submitted, they were quite interesting. And the good thing was everybody visited different surroundings, different areas, different projects, and everybody presented in a different style. That's a more important thing, that every student is using his own genuine thoughts and his style of producing reports and so on. So as you can see, all reports have their own formats, their own styles, and interestingly, they did very well in that as well. And just to conclude with this, the last thing I'm going to show you is the term project, which I gave to them. It was kind of a level 3 or level 4. Again, you can decide in between. What was required in this was we had, and actually I thank to Dr. Muhammad, he already shared one of his experience, which was, I think I have copied his one. So it's quite similar to that. So they were asked to select a topic from the course. And then the thing I asked them is to visit any construction company or any other engineering firm, and then see if that topic is how this topic or how this content of the technical side is being implemented in their company, maybe as an internal policy, maybe as a procedure, whatever they are doing. So the question was simple to the students, but it was open-ended. And I asked them to collect the information. You can do an interview with them. You can get their printed documents. You can do a survey questionnaire, whatever you like. It's up to you. So, and they had to select a team leader because this course was about management. So like construction managers, project managers, so they have to select their own team leader. They have to define the responsibilities of each member. They have to even plan this visit, that which company they will select, how would they go there, and what information they will collect. So all steps I asked them, that has to be recorded, planned, and showed to me. So they were asked to make a progress presentations. And then after like 2 weeks or so, I asked them to come up with a final report as well as a presentation. And this final report was like almost, I can say, it's similar to what they are going to submit as a like their senior design project reports or some kind of other kind of thesis or so on. So this gave them an idea how to write a technical report as well at the end. Interestingly, definitely, if I talk about that, they had to set their goals, they had to set their plans. They had to learn from that. So once they showed me the progress presentations, the progress reports, there were a lot of things which I observed, and I would strongly recommend to my colleagues listening to me is that always give students a chance to improve, because if you make your assessments once and for all, then students don't get the motivation to improve themselves. So what I did was, although it put me in a lot of efforts and energy to take the comments from each of their presentations, and then, so at the first go, what I did is I did not give them individual comments. I made a complete list of general remarks or weaknesses in their reports or presentations, and I shared it with the students, because they knew that they still have the final presentation to come. So this is what I did. And then I was expecting that they will reflect on these suggestions in their final reports. So there was a mixed experience. I will show you how did they reflect on my hard work on this, getting all these comments. Let me show you that. So if you see their performance evaluation, which I'm just showing you for the reason to tell what I did and how did I respond to that. In their progress presentations, luckily, because it was just a progress, they had planned something, they have visited some companies, they had some questionnaire designed. So the performance of almost all the groups, they were actually about, if I count them, I guess, I forgot now, it was 11 or 12 groups, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, it was 12 groups. So most of them you can see performing above 80%. It was a group assessment. But once I did the final report and final presentations, like I said, it's always good to give the students a chance to improve. But sometimes if you reward them high at the start, so it gives you a negative kind of impact, because students think that they already got a milestone and then it's okay, we'll maintain this minimum level. So in my opinion, early high rewards are disadvantages. As you can see in this, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, almost 7 groups, their performance in the final presentations went down. Actually, if you can see, even few groups, they went even 8% or 5% down. So think carefully about how do you reward the students, especially in these IBL activities, because they are more or less rubric-based assessments, and you have an option to slightly play with your assessment. So be very careful with that. Just to conclude, this is again, at the end of the final presentation. I didn't stop there. Actually, I wanted them to improve further, but definitely without any rewards. Then I gave them individual comments. So on each group, I told them what are your weaknesses, although I told you what not to do and what to do in your progress. But these are the things which you still have not considered in your final reports or final presentations. So definitely it was a good learning experience for the students to improve for the future courses, inshallah. So just showing you something more I did in the session. I did a lot of times, we did a lot of group discussions to solve practice problems, not just solving on the board. I throw the problem to the students, ask them to sit together, solve it. And sometimes I was rewarding them that if somebody can come up with the solutions, maybe with a group discussion, no problem. But if you can come to me early, I'll give a bonus point. That motivates the students, definitely. I had to introduce to them because I'm teaching a lot of things on project management and so on. So there is a Primavera P6 software available for that. And students were surprised to see that whatever they learned in like 2 weeks, it can be done in 1 day or half a day. So it was, again, improving their interest in the course. And likely, similarly, I invited a guest lecture from a construction organization in Saudi Arabia. It's actually a civil engineering or a geotechnical engineering company. And he actually delivered a talk on how the project cost controls are done in an industrial perspective. Again, this was a topic in the course. Once he was delivering this thing, I was looking at the eyes of the students. They were really shining because whatever they studied in the class, solving some examples and so on. And once a person from the industry is using the same terminologies and is discussing about what they have learned in the class, they get motivated because they get to know that these are real things. We are not just studying something for the sake of exams and quizzes. It is a practical life. So that was a wonderful experience for me as well as for the students. Okay, and to conclude my presentation, this is, I'm sorry, it's a plagiarized thing from the questionnaire sent by the dad on IBL Experience, but I just want to show what was my understanding on it. For example, it says that the IBL requires students to have extensive content knowledge. I disagree with that. It's not a big deal. IBL is not effective with lower achieving students. No, don't worry about that. It can work with all the students. IBL is well suited to overcome problems with students. Motivation, yes, true. IBL is not suitable for coordinated courses. I will say it's not a big deal. As far as the number of students are concerned, it can be, but if you have a reasonable number of students, don't worry about that. Preparing IBL lessons is time consuming. I would say yes, somehow you have to put some extra efforts on it. Difficulties to assess students in IBL. I would disagree on that, because if you can do some kind of rubric-based assessments and the students already know that these are the criteria for the assessment, so you will not have troubles. It will be really easy for you. Students' discipline, I would disagree with that, because once they get motivated in IBL, definitely you will not have these issues in the class. Being lost and frustrated, I never saw it, honestly speaking. More time to complete the syllabus, I would say neutral on that, because on some topics I have to compromise. Maybe I have to learn more on how to effectively use IBL to overcome this issue. The number of students was not too big, so it was effective. There's a support we need, I would say neutral, because Dr. Syed knows that whatever we need for IBL. And lastly, I will implement more IBL activities in my future classes. Definitely, I've enjoyed it. I'll go for it. And like Dr. Muhammad also showed some comments or remarks by the students, that is really a source of energy and motivation for any teacher if he sees that students are learning and getting better. So that's your source of energy and motivation for future. Like some of the comments by the students, they said that the linking and connecting what we learned with real life practices was interesting. They enjoyed how to connect with the real life. Because of IBL, they experienced that the lectures were not boring, although this course is theoretical and it's a very boring course. And lastly, they claimed that we developed or we got better communication skills and management skills. So that's what I experienced. And again, I'm thankful to the Deanship of Academic Development for this opportunity and their continuous support. So thank you very much. I'm open for questions, please. Go ahead.
Well, thanks a lot, Dr. Aziz. That's great. Okay, we can take a couple of questions, and then at the end, we will have questions for all three facilitators. So go ahead if you have a question for Dr. Aziz.
السلام عليكم.
وعليكم السلام.
وعليكم السلام.
يعطيكم العافية جميعا. You mentioned during your presentation the levels of IBL. What exactly you mean by those levels, and what are the criteria to classify things according to those levels?
Actually, it's a good question, but I would like rather answer on this is that if I go into this discussion, it's going to be, there was a first slide of Dr. Muhammad, that was from this already a learning guide provided to us, if I can display this also. Yeah, let me share that.
You can refer him to the teaching guide. There is a teaching guide, okay, which is uploaded. It tells you about the different levels of IBL. It explains it clearly, you know, each level and what does it mean.
And it's very interesting to see that document, because, for example, in level 1, it says that it's kind of a confirmation or a close inquiry. That means the instructor is providing only the essential question and outline how it can be solved. And then the students will have the resources and they will know how to use it. Maybe they even know what are the expected outcomes. So that we call it as a level 1. So if I talk about the level 4, which is the highest one, there is actually, it's a totally open or a free inquiry, we call it as. So the students are given free hand to construct their own essential questions, and they will research topics on that, and then they will come up with some activities which are related to that, and then they will try to answer what you ask to them in an open-ended way. So in level 4, definitely you will never expect similar answers for different groups of students. That's how they categorize it.
Right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, another question. There's a couple of chats later on, you know, the facilitators might, you know, respond to those chats.
Okay.
Another question for Dr. Aziz. Yeah, somebody is raising his hand.
Okay. Yeah, please go ahead.
Dr. Adil Shibani from Construction Management Department. Since I am familiar with the course, you present to us, you give the student تقريبا 4 assignments related to the IBL. I'm wondering how you prepare the major and final exam, which is problem solving phase. Do you have any complaint from the student that the assignment that they solve is not going to be included somehow in the exam?
Yeah. I could not hear you very well, but if I could get your question, is the first part of the question is that really, was it some components of IBL in mids and final exams? Honestly speaking, no. And this semester I didn't try it, but definitely.
I did something. You hear me now?
Yeah, Adil, your voice is not clear. Somehow, you know.
So I don't know how to solve this actually.
If you can type your question in the chat also, maybe I can.
Just I'm wondering, yeah, because the course itself, the nature of the course is a problem-solving course. Yeah. How you prepare planning, scheduling, cost estimating, the resources, delivery, blah blah blah. While in the assignment, you focused more in the IBL. As you present to us for assignment related to the IBL, which is based on collecting information from the industry, different taught by the student and so on.
Yeah.
I mean the students, they are not familiar with the problem solving during the classes.
Okay, if I get your question right, I can say on this is that basically all the practice problems, like you said, you're right, that all the problems related to scheduling, cost control, and all these things, they were being done in parallel in all the class activities. Like I showed some of the group discussions and activities, even in the class lectures also. But just for the sake of trying this experience for the first time over here, because I'm also a new faculty over here, so I opted some of the assessments to see how it works. And definitely, like you said, there are many more avenues where this approach can also be implemented, and we can go in a very good way. That's what I thought in this semester. So maybe in next time when I am going to teach this course, I'm going to think on these lines as well.
Thank you very much, Dr. Aziz, and it was nice presentation.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Aziz. Okay, we will move to our to Mr. Elias.
Yeah, there is a question from Mr. Ahsanullah in chat.
Yeah, can you please, if you, because we have to finish by 3 o'clock, but we'll take the question at the end if you don't mind.
Okay.
Let us, Elias, you have 8 to 10 minutes, then we can open the rest of the time for questions.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Said, for inviting me, and also would like to thank Dr. Muhammad and Dr. Mubashir for their presentation. Of course, the time was given to us about 8 to 10 minutes. I'm not going to exceed that, just like my co-leagues there. So my presentation will be a lot shorter than theirs. Okay, let me share my presentation. Let's see here. I'll change this. Okay. I hope it's clear.
It is, yes.
Yeah, my name is Ilyas Shawish. I am a lecturer at the Prep Year Math program. Basically, what I used, these are Prep Year students. So they just finished high school. This is their first year. So I could not put too much work on them, you know, for the IBL. So basically, I used only part of my class for the IBL. So the course was Math 002. The course is 4 credit hours with 1 hour is as a lab. So I used this 1 hour lab for the IBL. This summer, I taught 3 courses. 6 hours were lab and 6 hours were lectures. Total students, I have 75 students, 25 in each class. Now, 2 of the courses were only labs, basically. Basically, 2 of the courses were lab. They were not lectures. So I used the IBL in the classes. Now, what I used is called a jigsaw, and I think maybe many people are familiar with it. It's a cooperative learning classroom. Basically, this is just basically a fast explanation of what is the jigsaw method. It's basically a puzzle that we would like to complete. Each student is basically has a job to do. Somebody has his video or something open.
Can you please mute your mics?
Anyway.
Please mute your mics, okay? That's only the speaker mic should be on.
Okay.
Go ahead, yeah, sorry for that.
No problem. Like I said, each student has a very important part to do in the group. Now, to explain it, basically, what I do is this. Students will be sitting in a circle, basically, like a round table. If you have round tables, if not, they can just make a little circle. What I do is basically each student is going to learn with his peers. Each student must learn with his peers. Each student will teach his peers. Basically, everyone will be working. At the end, it is a cooperation by design, basically. Now, how does it work? The students will come. Now, it depends on how many questions I have. If I have 4 questions, then I'll have each group has 4 students in it. If I have 5 questions, the group will have 5 students. So basically, here comes the groups. I tell each student what question he's supposed to have. Of course, they have the questions from the day before or the week before, and they're supposed to prepare the questions. So here comes the groups, as you can see. Now, after that, what I do, these are the original groups or the home groups. Then after that, each student that has the first question will get together. All the students have question 3 together, question 4 together, question 2 together, and question 1. They will all sit together. And I give them basically 10 to 15 minutes, try to solve these questions. Now, my job is basically to go around the room, make sure that the students solve the questions the proper way. Sometimes they have more than one method, which is fine with me. Then I'll discuss this with them. I'll say, okay, this method you did was good. I mean, got to the answer, but it seems to be long. Perhaps you should have done something else. Does anyone have another method? And somebody will raise his hand. Yeah, I solved it with another method. And then we'll basically take the best method and the easiest method to explain. After that, each student will go back to his original group and he will explain that question to his group. But most of the time, each student has 2 questions to explain from 2 different sections. So basically, every student now must listen, must learn how to solve the question, and must deliver the solution with his own explanation, with his own words, how to solve this question. So each person is responsible and the group depends on him. So basically it is a team work. I've been using this method for several years. Of course, I stopped during the Corona pandemic. I went back to it and I found out this is really in IBL. I did not know it was called IBL. So I was using the jigsaw method, and it turns out to be actually one of the methods of teaching in IBL. So I really enjoy it and I love it. My students love it because it's something different. Like I said, it's a 4-hour course, and 1 hour a week, and instead of me lecturing, they are actually learning and lecturing to themselves. They seem to enjoy it quite a bit. Of course, I went and asked them several times if that's okay with them or not, and they seem to love it. Anyway, these are basically, it shows that the importance of the jigsaw method compared to just regular lecturing or reading or discussion. How does it work? I mean, how is it compared? We noticed that lectures, only 5% of the students will retain their information. Reading materials, and 25%, the visual materials is much better, of course. Demonstration, it's much better. Discussions and teaching others. Teaching others, this is what we do, is discussion and teaching others. That's what we do in the jigsaw method. Anyway, so this is basically what the jigsaw is, and that's what I used. Now remember, these are prep year students, so they are the first year. We cannot put a lot of load on them and expect them to do the work. They came from high school, they spoon-fed, you know what I'm saying? They're not used to doing the work themselves. So I think 1 hour a week is I thought, you know, is really great, and it's enough for them. Anyway, so basically that is what I used, and you know, Jigsaw seems to basically improve from pre-test to post-test. Is much better than the lecturing or the case study and other things. So the GBA is much better. Anyway, you know, these are some things that from other universities are done, but I don't think we need to get into that. I just wanted to share my experience. Like I said, the time was given to me is within 8 to 10 minutes. I don't want to exceed that. And I just leave the floor open for anyone has any questions for me.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Elias. Now the floor is open for question, and please, the facilitators, you can also look at the chat and try to respond to it if it has not been responded yet. So the floor is open now for questions. Let's. There was a question for Mubashir, so please go ahead and ask that question, and then we'll take other questions. Somebody was having a question for Dr. Aziz. Okay, might be a good answer. Type, can our facilitators read the chat and respond? Yeah, Mohammed, go ahead. Yeah,
yes, fine. There is a question by Ahsanullah, I think. Do you think that there are courses where IBL might not be employed, or it might not be effective, or it can work with any course? Yeah, it is actually up to the instructor to kind of, you know, use his judgment, best judgment to decide whether there is an IBL opportunity in that course or not. But from my small short experience is that there are always ways to fit or include some IBL methods in any course, whether it's an engineering course or science course or English course. I think there are many ways to find ways to include IBL in any course. That's again from my experience.
Okay, and I think the literature support what you said, yeah, Mohammed. The literature tells that, you know, you can use it in any course.
Yeah. And by the way, I think Dr. Mubashir and Mr. Elias also mentioned that it seems that we are employing IBL techniques, you know, for a long time. But as for me, I just get to learn the IBL terminologies maybe a year or so. But it seems that, you know, even when I was students, I know most of my colleagues, my faculty used to do that, or used to apply IBL techniques during classes. So I think, yeah, I second that this can be applied to any course.
If I add something on it.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Yeah, well, actually, if we really see that for the last few years, since we have been working on accreditations of NC, AAA, or ABET, and so on, all these things, the core of these accreditation systems is about the outcome-based education system. So whenever you start talking about outcome-based education, so the inquiry-based learning or problem-based learning or project-based learning, these terminologies by default will come into the discussion. So like my colleague said, that it's already, we know it, we have been working on it, but the only thing is to formalize it and to see the real benefits of it in terms of your courses outputs. So that's where we are maybe lacking. The other things, familiarity doing it, and we are alhamdulillah, most of us, we are very good on that, alhamdulillah.
Okay, somebody raising his hand. Go ahead, please, Adil. Any questions?
There is
Hello?
Aziz,
Is it okay
yeah,
now?
Mursi has a question, Aziz.
Yeah.
Okay,
so
go ahead.
The size of my class was, there were 2 sections, almost 20 in each class, and it was not a coordinated course. How much IBL was implemented? Okay, that's a difficult question. I don't know what does that mean. How much IBL? Like I've shown in some of the assessments, measure of all the assignments and term projects, it was IBL based. Along with that, there were quizzes and a midterm exam and a final exam as well. The GPA of the course compared to previous years. This was my first experience here in King Fahd University. So I will see how this GPA works well, inshallah, with IBL experiences in the coming courses. If I answered your question.
Thank you.
Can I say something?
Yes, Faddal, ya Adil.
Yes, it says the question here for everybody, how to include such learning activity in the total assessment for the student. In my opinion, the IBL should be designed to meet the assessment in the first place. I mean, before we start, we should design every single IBL state assignment or discussion to meet a certain outcome of the student, not vice versa.
I second Dr. Adil. This is the best way to deliver an IBL course. It has to be pre-designed, actually. I agree with that. Yeah.
Yes. Other questions? Adil, your hand still is raised. If you have other question, or it was just from, yeah. Okay, thank you. Any other question?
Yeah, Dr. Absi.
Yes, Nazar.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
Thanks to you all, brothers. Just one question. At what point of time of the course it will be good to offer the IBL? Beginning, media, and mid of the course, or at the end of the course?
Okay, if I can answer on it, like Dr. Adil already raised a very good point that it has to be a pre-structured, pre-designed component, first thing. Secondly, IBL has nothing to do with very large scale projects or some kind of small assignments or something like that. So you can start it immediately as soon as you start the course, or if you have designed some projects on that, so you can go through over the whole semester. The choice is yours. So it will not put you in any kind of constraints that you think that it's not effective in the middle or in the start or so. So that's my experience. That's what I think.
Thank you.
If I may add as well, I think it could be a mix, at the beginning, at the end, or in the middle, or even throughout the semester. So depending on the assessment plan that you have in the course.
Okay, so we have 2 hands, Umar and then Sultan.
Yes, thank you for the informative presentations. And I have only one question about the assessment. How to include these, let's say, activities in assessment? Is there any fair way to, let's say, to assess the students, since it is not consistent, let's say, activities?
If I answer on this, actually, there is a little extra effort required by the instructor in assessing the IBL-based activities, because sometimes the students may feel that you are biased towards somebody. So like Dr. Adil and some other colleagues also said that please decide it at the start and make a comprehensive homework on it. So if you do it by a rubric-based assessment and the students know the assessment criteria at the start, then definitely this issue can be overcome and you can easily assess the activities with properly defined rubrics for each component of that.
Yeah, I second that. Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Mohammed. Go ahead.
I second that. I think the key is to share the rubric assessment with the students beforehand.
Okay. Also, I can add to that. If you go to the teaching guide, which is uploaded to all faculty members, also you see there a table which will give you the type of assessment with the level of IBL you are using. It's just a guide. It's not, but it is left to you. So I mean, it will give you the other people's experience in this regard. So let's go to Sultan.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Thank you, Sayed, for having the opportunity for me to ask questions, and thanks for the presenters for their wonderful presentations. As for typology, and as you mentioned already, that we all apply like one part of another from IBL and our classes, even we don't call it IBL. The thing that when you apply some method like this, so I want your opinion on this. Like for example, the jigsaw method or the Mubashir method, when you give some topic to some student to present it, or a question to student to answer, to think about it over the night, and then come next day and answer, and they discuss the solution. What I feel from the student when they become like they know their problem inside out, but everybody in the group, they will just discuss it and will just know the solution, but not inside out. So they have different level because it is not their question. I don't know if you have this, if you experience this from a student or not. Is it wise that we rotate the role next day, like give question 1 to student 2 this time and let them try it from their own perspective, or it just become overdoing it?
If I might say something, yes, I think you're right, Sultan. The students, they seem to concentrate on the question they're given to them. And that's why I don't give them actually the question till they come to class. I say, okay, there are 10 questions for you to prepare, but in the class, he will not know the question till the beginning of the class. So he has to learn all 10 questions before he comes to class. And that will avoid that concentrating on 1 or 2 questions only. And that's what I do with my classes.
But is it also true that this student who work on this question will learn it inside out and teach other student, as Dr. The last presenter, I don't forget his name, mentioned that 90%.
The presenter will have more info, just like as you are a teacher, you know more about the material than the students. That's just normal. You know what I'm saying? Of course.
Yeah, but that's one problem.
Because he'll be afraid someone will ask a question and he would not know the answer.
I see.
See what I'm saying?
So then how you evaluate the problem in assessment? Like, for example, if this question come to the exam, then only this student or those group of students who work on this question, they have like advantage. So kind of you have to ask every question then, right?
Well, like I said, that's I don't think so. I mean, I think we have what I noticed that our students, yes, they concentrate on the question you gave them, but when it comes to quiz or a test, they study all the questions. You know what I'm saying? So they do well. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, of course, but with different levels, right?
Excuse me?
With different level, like one of them, they will answer it, but with different level of understanding.
Of course, someone, spend more time on a question, he will know it inside out. It's different from someone who just, skimmed it or learned it. Yeah, of course, definitely. I agree with you.
Okay, thank you.
There's a question here about somebody says, how do we assess the students learning and mastering concepts in Math 002? Basically, like I said, because this is the first time I use it as an IBL, I gave the class or the lab, I only gave it 5% from the total grade. Basically, if the student comes to class, he prepares his question, and he presents the question, then he will get the full mark. If he's absent or he did not do the work, then we subtracted some decimal points from him. Okay.
Okay. Any other questions or anything in the chat you would like to respond to?
Yeah, Dr. Said, there is another question about handling students who are lagging in the learning in groups activities.
Yeah.
So I would say from my experience is if we can do kind of combination of group assessment and individual assessment. So for example, in one of the courses, we did a group discussion solving, let's say, a game that was group-based. So, and then I used the same concept, but for using individual assessment in the final exam. So of course, I gave them, we discussed after the group discussion and so on, I gave them at least my answer and the procedure or the method, the approach that I used to find the answer. And I told them, you know, beforehand that I'm gonna bring a question similar to this assessment in the final exam. So you should use the same, more or less the same approach to solve the question. So I think that's one technique to use, is to kind of have an individual assessment, combine the group discussion or group activities with individual assessment to basically handle those two students who are lagging.
Great.
If I add one more thing in it, it's a very good answer by Dr. Muhammad. In these situations, once you are handling the lagging students, it's always recommended to break your assessments into parts. Like I said, give them some kind of multiple options to improve. So if you do it at once, definitely students even get demotivated also. So like, especially for projects, do some kind of mid assessments and then assessments at a later stage, and give them a chance to improve in the next one. And based on that, you can do the grading and all these things. So this will actually help the lagging students to get motivated and come forward.
Well, that's great. More questions? Well, I would like here to thank the facilitators and thank you, all of you, for a really engaged experience sharing session. It was great. Thanks a lot. For those, this is one message for those who were using IBL during the summer and did not submit their final report. We will open the link for them again. So please, submit your final report, because this is the way you look at things and then we improve. Thank you all. Thank you. Thank you very much. And you have a good day.
Thank you to all of you.
Thank you all of you. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum.
Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Wa alaikum salam.